Okay, welcome back. This is Shoot 'em Part 2. Um, in this one, we're going to sort out the actor sprite um, and create a couple of players. Okay, and hopefully have them moving around the screen. Uh, if you've got an actor sprite already, you can either delete it. So you right click over something in Solution Explorer and say delete. Just follow the on-screen prompts. Or you can modify yours to be like mine, but I'm going to do it from scratch. Okay. Right, so I'm going to go and add a new class called actor. So if you already got an actor and you're going to try and modify it, just watch along. So I'm going to say add class. So I just went project, add class. I'm going to give it its name, actor. It'll put the defaults libraries in there, but I don't want those. I need my standard ones. So I'm going to go to one of my other classes, game container, and I'm just going to copy all the using statements from the top. So I'm going to say copy, and then I'm going to just highlight those and paste over them. Okay, so that's my first step. The next one, I'm going to make this public, the class, and I'm going to make it inherit from Sprite. So I'm going to nick all the good stuff of a Sprite and I'm going to add my extras. Okay, so the actor is going to record various things. It's going to record what keys it's using to control itself, but it's also going to record what its player number is. Now we're going to do all those with some public fields. So we're going to have player num, which is just a number. And then we're going to have what I call, these are part of my engine, keypad pairs. So this is a key and a gamepad that can be tested together by the input manager. So we can have keypad, and if you use the picker, you'll see it come up keypad pair. And we're going to give it a name. So we're going to have forward, and we're going to have public keypad pair back. Because what we're going to do with this is we're going to move forward and back and then rotate. So we always go in the direction we're rotated. We're going to have keypad pair. The picker's quite clever. You'll notice it uses the last thing from that set of key presses. So it's going to keypad pair straight away for me now. I'm going to have turn left, keypad pair, turn right, and I'm going to have a shoot key. So public keypad pair shoot. Now the actor's not going to set those. They're going to be set by a couple of other classes that I'm going to create called player 1 and player 2, which are going to inherit from actor. So they're going to be sprites, but they're going to be actor sprites. So they'll get all these fields straight off. Okay. Right, we're going to create the constructor. Remember, this is the special method that is run as soon as we say new actor. All right, now this needs to accept, so when we set up an actor, we're going to have a start location, we're going to give it a color, and we're going to give it its player number. All right, so we're just going to say, right, okay, vector 2 for my start position. I'll call that start. These are just the arguments. These are for me as the creator of the class actor. These are my values. Okay, they're just what I'm going to refer to these as. Color in the American spelling, just going to call it color. Remember, case sensitive. And then I'm going to have an integer called player num. Okay, right, so I move to the end, and then I'm just going to say open brace, and it puts the closing brace in for me. And then I can press enter, and I'm ready to start putting my code in. Okay, because this is a sprite, the very first line I'm going to whack in is going to be engine manager dot add sprite. If you ever create a sprite and nothing appears on screen, check that you've got that line of code in. Remember, this refers to this instance of an actor. So when we've said new, we create an instance of a class. So it exists in memory. So we can use the keyword this to refer to ourselves. So we're saying add this sprite to the game engine, which is quite nice. Okay. Right, we need to define the graphic. Now you might still have this from before, but let's assume you haven't. So I'm just going to say frame.define, and it's stored in the texture gm.tx. Can't remember what it's called. Oh, it's tx example. And then we don't want the whole texture. We're going to have a portion of it, which starts at x79, y3, 35 pixels wide, and 60 pixels high. When you're creating your graphics, always take account of what screen size you've set, because you can scale things in the game engine, but you don't want to be doing that by default. You should be scaling for special effects, like something explodes or something shrinks. You don't really want the graphics cards messing about with your graphics as standard, because it looks awful, to be fair. All right, so you want to draw them at the right size. Right, the next thing we need to add in, we want to use these values. Okay, these three arguments that we've been given. So we're going to do our basic setup. So we're going to set the position of the sprite using position 2D, because we've got a vector 2 value. We're just going to say that is equal to start. So sit where whoever's called this actor has said. We want to set the color. So we set the wash to be the same as color. And we want to store the player number. Now we've got player num here, and we've got an argument called player num. Now we want to store this player num in here. All right, and we can refer to the actor's player num rather than the argument by using the keyword this. So we can say this dot player num. So that's referring to this. We can say that's equal to the argument player num. And you'll see that in the picker, it's put the word parameter. Oh, I wish people would just stick to parameter or argument, but they don't. Okay. When you get errors, it'll say arguments don't match, but it's calling it a parameter there. I don't understand the logic of that, but hey. So it actually means that parameter value, which is the one we want. Okay. So we've stored the basic values. Okay. That we've been given. The next thing we want to do is we want to set up our control code. Now, in the game engine, for a sprite, there's a special routine that we can identify to the engine and say, right, I've got stuff I want to do. And this is called an onUpdate. So if we say onUpdate plus equals, so we're saying add to the list of update methods, this one, control. It doesn't exist yet. So we're going to right click on that, and we're going to say generate method stub, and it creates all of this for us. Don't worry about this bit. This is internal to the engine. We can use it. It allows us to do some funny things with methods that are shared between sprites, but we're just going to ignore it for now. Okay, we want this. This is going to be defined by actor. Actor is going to define how we turn left, right, forward, and back. Okay, that's going to be standard between the actors. But the shooting, we're going to add. I'm doing it more of, not for practicality's sake, but more to show you another thing, another standard way of working. Okay, so we're going to put control code in here, but I'm going to modify the method that is created. Okay, so instead of private, I want to make this public. And after that keyword public, I've just made myself a space around my cursor. I'm going to put virtual. Now, what this allows me to do is I can set up some code here, but if someone wants to inherit from actor, which we're going to do later, we can override the original code, or we can add some extra code and then run this code. You'll see it when we do it. Okay. So we're going to put in our bog standard code for controlling the movement of the sprite. So we're going to be using the input manager, and we're going to interrogate the input manager using if. So we're going to say, okay then, gm.input-manager. If a key is down, that's being held down, and we're going to check the forward key to start with, and see with the picker, it's pulled up keypad pair forward for me. Right, I'm going to put braces in. Let me scroll that down so it's on screen. So I can mark a block in case I want to put some extra code. Now what we're going to do, whatever direction we're facing, we want to move forward a certain distance. Now I'm going to set my speed of moving to 300 pixels per second, and I'm going to update the player's position manually myself. I'm not going to use velocities. I could use velocities, but I'm actually just going to move the sprite myself. So I'm just going to set position, and that's the 3D position. I'm going to say plus equals, so I'm going to move forward. Now, working with directions is quite complicated, so there is a rotation helper that helps with stuff to do with velocities and moving in certain directions and working out what angle I'm facing and things like that. It's called rotation helper, and it's got various methods. We're going to use my direction, and this will get our direction. So we give it the sprite that we want to check. We set the additional angle to 0. Don't worry about that, just set that to 0. If you've got graphics in a funny way, then you may make adjustments, but we're just going to leave that at 0. So that will give us a direction vector. Now this is a director that's got a length of 1, so it gives us literally, if we multiply this, we can get a direction for a certain distance along a line. Okay, so we want 300 pixels per second. Now you'd think we could just say that, but actually that will move 300 pixels every time the game updates, which is happening 100 times every second. So we don't want that. What we need to find out is what is the period of time, the fraction of time that has occurred. And you'll find yourself doing this a lot. So we're just going to say that. So what we're saying is, for this fraction of time, times it by 300, and then apply that to the direction. So that's going to move the character in whatever direction it's rotated, which is what this bit's doing, okay, by the equivalent of 300 pixels per second. So that's really what that is. Okay. Right, I'm going to do, that's my forward movement. I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to copy and paste, but I'm going to make sure that I put this after that if. So it's a separate if, and I'm going to check for the back key. Okay, if you double click, just like in Word and other programs, the standard now is double click, highlights, single click, place of the cursor, double click, highlights. So I highlight, double clicked forward, and then I just overwrite it with back. That's my back key. Okay, now if I want to go backwards, all I've got to do is say same direction, but I want to subtract. Okay, so I only need to change that one bit, and that'll allow me to go backwards and forwards. Right, I'm going to do my left and right rotation. So I'm going to do these myself. So I'm putting these again after the ifs. Don't do this. This is a common mistake. Don't start putting it in here, because if you put it here, what you're saying is, if I do back and I do the rotation, you don't mean that. We're doing these separate. So I'm going to say gm.input-manager. I'm going to check for the key being down again, and I'm going to say turn left. Just put it in braces, and then I'm going to alter the rotation angle of the sprite. I'm always doing things like that. So rotation angle, and I'm going to, if I'm going to go left, I'm going to go anti-clockwise. So I want to subtract an angle. And again, I'm going to use the gm.eventmanager.period, and I'm saying how many degrees per second. So I want to turn it 180 degrees per second. So in 1 second, I can go halfway round. So it would take 2 seconds to go all the way around. These values can be played with. Okay, we're putting them in as constants at the minute, but they could go in as variables, as fields. All right. Right, so I'm going to do, that was turn left. I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste it afterwards. So I'm still in, you can see I'm still in the block for control. So I'm going to put turn right, and to turn right it's the same value, but I'm going to add it on. Okay. So that has set up my control logic for a basic actor. And an actor in this case is something that can like rotate and move forwards and backwards. One final thing that I need to put in. I don't want my players going off screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a limit box. Now this is something where the engine can automatically check to make sure that a sprite is within a region. Now there's various things you can do with limit boxes. So I'm going back up to the constructor for actor. If you get lost in your code, at the top, in the right hand side, it will give you a list of all the fields and all the methods. So you can just click on one of those and you go straight back. So if you want the constructor, go straight back like that. Right, after the update code, I'm going to set the limit box up. So I'm going to say limit initialize, and then I'm going to say limit, and because we're just doing with a single screen game, we're going to say viewport action, and then we're going to type limit action, and then we're going to say stop at. So when we get to the edge, we're going to stop, and that'll align us at the edge, so you can't go off the screen. We want to run the limit check after we've done our control logic, okay? So that if we move off screen with any of these controls, the limit then says, "Whoa, we're off screen, come back on screen." So in order to make that active, because it's not a default, that we're going to say update before limit equals true. So it forces the on update to run and then does a limit box check. Okay, so that's created an actor. Doesn't help us much because it's not doing anything. We haven't used it anywhere. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a player 1 and a player 2 that are going to be based on actor. So we're going to go to game container because this is where we want to create them. So in our constructor for game container, just after we've reset the scores, we're going to say new player. Now it doesn't exist and it's trying to help us, but we're going to press escape to get rid of the picker, and we're going to say new player 1. And on the next line, we're going to say new player, and again, we're going to press escape to get rid of the picker. New player 2. Neither of those exist, so we're going to right click on player 1, and we're going to generate a class. Okay, and it's very nicely, and we're going to generate the player 2 class. And you'll see at the top, it's very nicely opened 2 tabs and created the 2 files in Solution Explorer. Right, let me zoom. It's put the standard libraries in. We don't want those. So let's go to the top of actor and grab all the using statements, copy them, put them in player 1, put them in player 2 while we got it in the clipboard. So let's highlight that lot and replace them. So player 1 and player 2, and we'll set up player 1 first, are going to be public, and they're going to inherit from actor. Okay, so I'm just going to set up player 1 first. Right, so we're going to create the constructor for player 1. So we're going to say public, constructor doesn't have a type. You just say name of class. It's not going to have any parameters. So if you look at it back, I'll just flip back to game container. When I called these 2 constructors, player 1 and player 2, for these objects, I didn't give them any parameters because they're going to set everything up themselves. Now, if we just leave it like that, we'll get an error. Okay, so we created a constructor. We don't want it to do anything yet, but we've got an error. If we look at it, it says template actor does not contain a constructor that takes 0 arguments. No, it doesn't. If we look at actor, its constructor expects 3 arguments. And because we're inheriting from actor, we've got to give it those arguments. So on the line just before the brace, we're going to say colon base. Now we can give it the arguments we want. So we're going to have a start position for player 1. Now I want player 1 on the left hand side of the screen. So I'm going to say new vector 2, because it's a vector 2 value, this first actor argument or parameter. And I'm going to say gm.screenSize.left plus 100. Okay, and I want it to be 100. So it's going to be 100, 100 from the top left-hand corner. So that's the vector 2 value. And you can see that I've got brackets and it's trying to help me with the highlighting there. I then want a color, so I'm going to make this one, well, I don't know, red. Because the graphic is white, we can color it any color we want by setting a wash. So we're going to do that. And this is going to be player number 1. So now we've called the constructor. Okay, so we're saying like, oh, set up an actor, this start position, that color, call it player 1. Then we're going to create the key pairs. So we're going to say forward equals, and we're going to say new keypad pair, and it knows it's keypad pair this. Right, it needs to know what key we want. So for forward, I'm going to use the standard, this is the left-hand player, so I'm going to play 2 people on the keyboard, so I'm going to use WASD. So W is going to be my forward, so I'm going to say keys.w. Then it wants to know what pad number, if we've got a pad connected, so it's going to be pad 1. And the button I'm going to use, it's going to be pushing the left thumbstick up. So I'm just going to say buttons.left thumbstick up. Okay, I'm going to do the other one, so I'm going to do back. So that's keypad pair. That's going to be S. Pad 1, buttons, and that's going to be left thumbstick down. So you could do, we're just using it in digital mode for this example. We could do funnier things to, oh, I've missed a comma there. We could use the analog features, but I'll either show that in another video or show you quickly how to do it. It's quite nice and easy to use, to be honest. I'm just going to turn left, and that's going to be another keypad pair. So left is going to be my A. So that's keys.A. Pad 1, buttons, dot. So turn left is going to be, oh, I'm going to use left trigger. I'm going to use the triggers. Yeah, I'll use the triggers for that. And turning right is going to be, I've cocked some up, I think. I don't know, I think it's got its knickers in a twist. Keypad pair is going to be keys dot D, pad 1, buttons, buttons dot, and then we can use the right trigger. Again, I'm using the picker. Right, let's see if that's happy. I'm just going to, right, I don't know what it's moaning about there. I must have done something silly that I've not noticed. Now I'm going to press F6 to build it, or I can go up to build, just to see if it builds right. I expected a bracket. I've missed my comma again. If I do build again, so build, it should say build succeeded down here, which it does. And that tells me everything's all right. Okay, so I'm going to set up player 2 in a similar way. So I'm going to create the constructor for player 2. So I'm going to say public player 2. Now, let me just put my bracket. Now that hasn't errored because this time I've created the constructor before I've told it inherits from actor. So I'm going to go up to this public line, class player 2 line, and put public at the front, and I'm going to say inherit from actor, and it's going to moan at me again. So I'm going to go back to player 1. I'm just going to copy the base code and put it after the player 2 line. Now I don't want this to be red. I'm going to make this blue. You can change the colors if you want, and I'm going to call it player 2. Now the position, I don't want it to sit on top of player 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the right hand side of the screen, minus 100, so that'll be 100 in. And I'm going to put it at the top, same height, 100. Okay. Now I need to set the keys up for player 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a bit cheeky and I'm going to copy and paste the player 1 keys. So where are we? Right, so let's just copy those setups. So copy player 2, paste them in, but I obviously need to change them. So I'm going to use the cursor keys. So I'm going to have for up, I'm going to use up. So again, delete the dot, put it back in. That's going to be pad 2, but I'm going to use the same keys. So I only need to change these to pad 2. So let's change them all to pad 2 first. Down is going to be down. Left is going to be left. And D is going to be right. Okay, so that should be enough to get this running. So if we go back to game container, you can see we've said create player 1 and create player 2. So all we've done is in this vid, we've created the actor, set some basic stuff up like limit box, control code, default control code, set up position information that we've been passed as arguments. And then we've got 2 inheritors, player 1 and player 2, that set up some keys and basically start positions and colors. Right, so if we just try and run in this, see if it runs, hopefully get our title screen, press 1 to start. Oh, we have no graphics on screen. Interesting. Oh, I know what I've forgotten. Oh, no, did that. Let's have a think.